Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Good evening. It's a bit later tonight.
Good evening. It's very full.
So we are Nat and Mandy from the Infinite Me. And the Infinite Me, we're just talking about, we still have to form a tagline, but basically what we're all about here is knowing ourselves as the infinite energy that moves through us, and how do we embody that so that we can play with everything in the world. So that's what we're here to do, and have conversations all around that. So we've gone orange this week, as you can see on our names. We've chosen a colour each week. So
it's an orange week.
The energy of orange. Yesterday, our episode we called "Are You the One?" And so we basically doing a bit of an exploration around what we're coming across a lot is that this concept of it feels like this real separation between saying, oh, I'm in ego right now, and then I've got to connect back into my infinite self, or my higher self, or whatever language you kind of want to use around that. And, we've done the same thing too, where we've almost felt like it does feel like a separate thing. You feel like you've got to plug back into something. And so yesterday's discussion, if you want to go back and have a look at that, was all around this concept of like the infinite energy is behind everything. It's always there. It's a constant. It never goes away. So you can never not be connected to it. So it's only a story that we tell ourselves that we're disconnected and we're all alone and we're in ego. Yesterday's discussion was a very juicy one. Deep dive into that if you want to go and check that one out.
Yeah.
So we thought today we might continue the conversation, because we're just having a bit more of a discussion around what we probably didn't get to talk about yesterday, but it's in the same vein. So we're just talking about this concept of things that people plug into as guidance, I guess, if you like, I suppose is the best word to describe it. But things like angels, and I know you get like soul readings or Akashic record readings. I don't know, Nat, if you can think of some others that people might, like tarot readings even, or...
Yeah, I guess I'm particularly thinking about angels.
Yeah.
If you're in a religious sense, talking about saints.
Yes, is a good one.
Guides. There's so many different terms for it.
Yeah, like even the term like higher self, oversoul, like all different phrases that people use and tap in. But we're just sort of still talking about that concept, saying there's still like this real separation energy that seems to be, like, I know I come across so many different spiritual teachers and emails that I've subscribed to over the years, and still just noticing there's this real separation concept that they're not actually really still seeing that it is all connected. It is the one energy. There is no separation between any of those concepts, but we tune into them as if they're outside of us. It still feels like they're an outside power. And a lot of people do give their power away to angels and guides and, I need to see what Archangel Michael says. And there's nothing wrong at all with any of that. It's just more, if you see it outside of you, that's where I guess the problem comes in, if you like, because you start to give your power away to that because you feel like it's separate to you. So we're talking about that. We didn't really get to dive into that part of it yesterday, because that's quite a big thing in the spiritual community, I find. Anyway.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's the different terms, and everyone's using different terms. But I must say, all along the journey, I found it so difficult to actually tap into that. To talk about having guides or angels or whatever, I've just never resonated with that at all. I don't know why.
Yes.
But then I always got obsessive with trying to connect with those things, because I felt like I should have, because other people were doing that in the spiritual world and on their journey and stuff. And it's like, oh, do I not have any guides or angels? And then I heard that, well, everybody's got those. And I was like, well, it sort of makes sense that I would have, because the infinite energy would have like lots of assistance here for me, I'm sure.
Yes.
And then I was like, oh, I still just can't tap into that energy. Like, I just don't feel it. But then I started to really have seen over the time people where they have actually done that. One or two really prime examples of different people a fair while ago now, where they would actually have direct conversations with Archangel Michael and stuff like that. And that sort of stuck with me, I guess. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm just not sure about that.
Yeah.
And then the more I thought about it, was like, well, if you are talking about archangels and guidance and all this sort of stuff, it's almost impossible with the languaging and maybe it is just a languaging thing, to not feel a separation.
Yeah.
Because in human terms, we have to talk about archangels and guidance and angels and all those sorts of things. We have to label them. And so they become an entity.
Yes.
And so an entity then is that entity's over here, there, and I'm over here. So therefore it has to be separate to me.
Yes.
And therefore the ego loves that. And
Yes.
it's automatically going to start putting its power into those things. And so your process then becomes to, if you want to, reclaim your power from those things, like, and realize that those other entities or whatever you labels that and they are just labels at the end of the day, we've called them something. So therefore they have a presence and an identity, which
Yes.
again, ego loves. I guess, the process then becomes reclaiming your power from that, if you want, from those things, or just not going there in the first place, which I think is sort of where I've been guided to, I guess, over the years. Like now I can see it just hasn't been my path. I just have not resonated with it at all, any of those things.
Yeah, I would say the same too. It hasn't really been part of my journey either. And again, I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with, tapping into any of that if it works for you, but as long as you see that as an aspect of your consciousness that you're playing with as an outside entity to give you guidance in this game of life, like that's truly what it is at the end of the day. So you can, we get guidance from everywhere, which we were talking about in a previous video a couple of days ago. Like there's always signs outside of us, like we have our own intuition, a sign outside of you or somebody just saying something to you. So that's the same, I guess, as an angel or a guide. It's still an aspect of you if you see it as that at the end of the day. So that's where the problem, I guess, comes in, is if you do see it as separate, in the essence of kind of giving your power away to it. So if you're identifying the human form, and then that's a separate entity, and it knows more than I do, so therefore it has more power at the end of the day. It's why a lot of people go to psychics and things like that, and it's because they want to know what's going to happen, but you're completely putting your power outside of you the whole time. Like your whole world can change in an instant. Like, and we have an intuitive friend of ours who we've spoken about before, Gazelle Lowe, who does intuitive readings, and she does them very different because she basically just asks you questions, and it's questions that you're essentially probably asking yourself on some level, like, and you just might not be conscious of them. And I think Nat sort of referenced that when she was having a conversation about her relationship with Jodie at the time. Gaz asked her sort of a pretty confrontational kind of question, but she comes at it from this angle of like, well, I'm just you, so I'm just reflecting you back to you. Like you've actually put me here in this position to ask these questions of you. So it's essentially you asking yourself these questions in the form of Gaz on the outside asking the question. And that's truly all a psychic is as well. And she used to kind of give information around what might happen as well down the track. But then she said, I just found people would get into so much trouble with it because they then would pin all their plans on this thing that she told them was going to happen. And she said it's absolutely 100% that thing could happen. But the minute that you attach to it, she said, you can change the outcome in an absolute instant. You change your belief and you immediately change the outside manifestation. And that's what happens when people go to psychics and they really attach to, oh, the psychic said this was going to happen next year. I'm going to meet this person. And so, yes, 100% that might be going to happen. And that's probably what that person was picking up for you as true in the moment at that time. But as soon as your ego gets a hold of that and you start making a story out of that, and then you start looking all the time outside of you for, is it this person? Is it that? But maybe it was that person I just spoke to, or like, and you start to get really obsessed with the story and how it's going to show up. And then people say, oh, it didn't really turn out that way and it wasn't really true. And it's just like, well, it's more because you put the power outside of you. So that's the whole thing where just seeing so much in the spiritual community is that there is still this real separation between your infinite energy that is underlying absolutely everything. And it just flows through us in this human form. So we're not actually our body. Like we're here to sort of, it's like a vehicle to play the game with, if you like. We're not actually our body. So when we identify with that, then we feel separate. And that's why we say we have to connect back in. We have to have a guide to tell us the answer. We have to have an angel to come give us a message. And it's not that that's not true. It's only when we see it outside of ourselves, that's when that ego problem starts, I guess. You're just putting the power.
I guess in asking for guidance, say from an angel or something like that, it's almost almost telling yourself, and I could be wrong, almost telling yourself, I'm in so much ego right now that I actually can't get the message myself. So I need a divine entity to tell me what I'm actually feeling or what is true for me right now.
Yeah, I'd say yes to that, actually. Yeah.
And that might be true. You might actually be in so much ego and so much turmoil about a particular thing that you actually do need guidance from an extra, like from something.
Yes.
And I've done that. Like when I was having issues with Jody, I did turn to Gaz for a read because I couldn't see clearly what the answers were for me. I knew there was stuff bubbling up, but there was so much, you're so inside the story that you can't see clearly what is actually true for you in that moment.
Yes. Yeah, I'd say yes. Yeah.
So in turning to her, I totally agree. Doing a read with Gaz, as it is for any psychic, is that they can only reflect what's going on for you internally that you can't see right now. And you might have had glimpses and stuff. And Gaz said, you already know this. And I said, yeah, I know. I've actually been questioning this now on such a deep level. I actually probably wasn't 100% aware of how much I was questioning it.
Yes.
Because it was a lot deeper and it was that quite subconscious. So all she's done is bring the subconscious to the conscious, and for me to actually speak the words, I don't think Jody and I should be together right now. And as soon as I spoke those words, she went, okay, the read's over. And I was like, okay. And it did. It felt totally done. She said, and I said, you were just trying to get me to say those words, weren't you? And she went, and I was like, okay, this is really interesting. But I totally agree that at that point, at that very moment of something becoming to your consciousness, you actually have a choice in that moment to change the entire scenario at that point.
Yes.
So like Mandy was saying, what you were just saying then, man, is that people then take that and go, okay, this is my destiny. This is what's going to happen 100%, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, if you continue on the path that you're going on right now, that's where you will end up. So if that's great, then keep doing what you're doing.
If that feels true for you, then you keep taking steps as they present in the moment, as we've been talking about. This is like still following what's true for you. And if it doesn't feel true what the psychic tells you, then you don't follow it. You don't attach to it. Kind of like this. Yeah, I think the distinction I was just going to make between what you're saying, you went to Gazalea to have a read because you felt a bit of like you weren't 100% sure because you're probably very, obviously very close to the situation, and it's hard sometimes.
I didn't want it to be true.
That's probably more it. Like when you don't want something to be true, you tell yourself that you're confused and you can't make a decision. Yes. Yeah. So it's kind of so you went to Gaz fully knowing that Gaz was a reflection of you, and that she's going to bring up what's.
And she would say what was definitely 100%. I knew she wouldn't lie to me, and I knew she wouldn't sugarcoat it.
Yes.
And that's what I needed. I knew that. I knew it was going to be a really tough read. I just felt it. I felt really sick before it.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, this is really interesting. My ego is really already tapping, or my infinite self is already tapping into what is about to take place, because I am feeling so churned up right now.
Yes. So you probably could have got to that same place yourself, like if you got really, really super honest with yourself and you journaled it out, or you had a conversation with somebody else, a friend, or who knows, it doesn't really matter. But in that moment you chose to go to Gazalea as a guide, to knowing that you'd be a true reflection of what's going on for you, but you weren't putting your power outside of you. That she had the answers and you didn't know what they were. It was kind of, that's the distinction I guess I just wanted to try and make, is just there is a very big difference between and somebody knowing that yes, you can get some guidance because maybe you can't hear it for yourself because you are too close to the story, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing, I don't see anything wrong with that at all. It's all part of the story that you can play with. Like you can play with guides, you can play with angels, you can have a voice come to you from the outside, as long as you see that as part of yourself. Like it's part of you. It's all you. At the end of the day, you talking to you, the bigger you, not this human body you.
And I think that's the thing. That even extends to like teachers and gurus. Like so many people get caught up in the whole guru thing. I think we're woken up a little bit now. We did go through a guru phase. It felt like, but I think a lot of people sort of did start to realize that it's like, oh, the gurus haven't got all the answers either. Like they're actually still as fucked up as everybody else is.
Yeah.
So
behind the curtain, sometimes it's not,
yeah,
not all those pretty pictures.
We work with different speakers. I can tell you that, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. So it was sort of like, I guess, waking up along that journey and going, okay, that teacher or that guru or whatever can only ever reflect what's going on for you at that moment.
Yes.
They cannot. It's just even scientifically impossible for somebody else to do anything other than that.
Yes.
So there can be no power put into the other person. So even people thanking us for our messages and bits and pieces here, thank you. Like, it's great. Thanks for the appreciation, but it's not us. It's you. You're the one that's actually asked for these messages. And if you're getting ahas and stuff, it's coming from you.
Yeah.
We can only ever reflect what is you're meant to be hearing right now.
Yes.
And acting upon.
Characters in your story.
That's it. Yeah. We're just actors being given the script by you to talk. And so that's what we're doing. So,
and then I guess from our perspective, or my perspective, I'm going to speak from that, is that I've created Nat to be my sister in this lifetime and this storyline, and we get to do this fun project together because it is fun, and we get to have these conversations, and maybe it helps somebody else, but it's not the driver of it. It's kind of like, it's just, no, this is just fun. Like, it's fun to dive in and have these conversations that look like a business, because I really enjoy business stuff, and I really enjoy creating stuff, and it's just so. But I know fully well at the end of the day that it's all the one energy. Like, it is just something to play with. Like, it's there's no separation between it. Like, Nat's over there and she's supposedly over in Malaysia, and it's just part of the storyline, and you can play with it all. So not putting power outside of you.
I mean, there's a
better than you at the end of the day.
Conversations we're having anyway. It's like, okay, let's record them and have other people eavesdrop on them. Be a voyeur. But this is like such a passion to talk about. Then let's just keep talking about it, type thing. Like, to no agenda or end. Like, yes, we might put on a coaching program or something like that because it feels right to do it. Like, there's again that infinite. If you really step into the infinite doesn't need anything. So the only motivation it can ever have is to have fun. That's all that's left. Take away the money agenda and the ego agendas of getting recognition and appreciation, and what are all the other ones that we went through? It's like 5 of them.
The ego, the aspects of the ego. So you had security, recognition, appreciation. They start with A.
There's 5 of them, and we did a video on it.
Approval and was it appreciation? It wasn't acknowledgement. There was another. It's another A one.
The ego needs a lot of stuff. So it's like, but when you take all that stuff away, including the money one, what are you left with? Like, it can only ever be because it's fun, and it's it reminds me of a story right now, because we're going through when we leave Malaysia here, we fly to Milan. Our ultimate stop is Paris for our next house set. So we flew to Milan because it was cheaper to get there. And then we thought, we'll have an event to get over the Alps and get into Paris. So there's all different ways you can get there. So we're talking about the train, we're talking about the bus, and then Jody came across BlaBlaCar. And I was like, that would be quite fun. Like, there's a guy that's actually traveling from Milan through to Geneva. And he's on a holiday with a friend of his. And I was like, that's really cool. Like, the way he's actually going, because you get to see which route they're taking. It goes past like Mount Blanc and all the like massive mountains and stuff. And obviously it's going to be a bit more enjoyable with those guys to perhaps stop and take photos and get the local, rundown type things from there. I was like, that'd be so much fun, more fun than, catching a bus. So I was like, let's book it. So then we do that. But we will have already traveled overnight on a plane. So this will sort of be right through to the next night. So by this stage, we will have been traveling over 24 hours. And then Jody's like, maybe we could just sort of stay with him to another town he's actually going to. And it's a smaller town, but then we would have to get from there to Lyon to then get to Paris. And I was like, okay, that's not sounding fun anymore. It might be cheaper, but that's not really fun anymore. The adventure's over at that stage. So it got me thinking a little bit more about it, and it's like, okay, if you take the money thing away and you take a lot of all the other ego needs away, what's left? And it was like, it's just a decision whether it's fun or not. Like, would it be fun to have this experience? Yes. Would it be fun to have this experience? No. Like, okay, well, don't have it. Like, go and do something else that's more fun.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, it's actually really simple to make decisions when you come from this space. It's like, would that be fun?
And you got to remove yourself from the needing to know how it's going to unfold, because that's not your job. At the end of the day, that's when the ego takes a hold of it and starts thinking it's got to work it all out. But it's job is, as we've said before, your job, if there was one, is to just follow the feeling of what feels true or fun or feels like love coming through. And then the outside world morphs to match your inner feeling. Like, that's how it actually truly works. But when we start putting that, we start going, oh, well, not sure how the money's going to come to me. You actually take the power out of the manifestation. Like, it can't come to you anymore because you've taken the power out of it. So it's almost like this power is reaching out, and then suddenly you just like pull it straight back again as soon as the ego kind of takes hold of it. So it is, like we said, it is simple at the end of the day, but not necessarily easy when you're
I agree. It is that simple, and so then we make it really complicated. Like, oh, it's got to mean this, it's got to mean that. We're going to put this on and this on, and it's just like, what if we just asked ourselves, would this be fun right now?
Yes.
To do this, yes or no? That's it.
Yes.
It's the only decision that ever needs to be made.
Yes.
And you'll know the answer to that straight away. It's funny.
I was just thinking, it's sort of going back to the topic we were just talking about with guides and angels and things, and it's it's kind of a big topic to jump into, but it's just coming up because it's a conversation I've had with a friend a few times around God, to do the whole concept of God, and particularly tied into religion. The person I'm thinking about is quite religious. But it is definitely, I mean, we were both raised as Catholic in the storyline. Probably didn't resonate with very much at all, but it's kind of like
for part of the storyline anyway.
But it was more like I just never kind of got that. Probably did when I was younger, maybe, but like I always walked into church kind of just weird. I don't know, just always had a weird feeling when I walked in there that just didn't quite get what it was all about. Like, it just felt like there was a lot of rules and how things could be done, and just with priests the way they were and the way they would talk, in their sermons and things like that, and just felt very, I would say, like the fear of God was kind of put into you, and I just never felt through. Like, it just never ever resonated, that whole energy. I just could not get it. It's just like, well, isn't God meant to be loving and accepting, but somehow we're meant to be afraid and we're going to be judged, and all this. It's just like, it didn't gel. Like, even as a kid, the stories, it didn't make sense. But I'm just thinking of like these conversations I've had with this person. It's kind of around, it was always like, oh, I'm waiting for God to show me a sign. I hear this so many times from different people. It's just like, I'm waiting to be shown. And it's just like, well, you're going to be waiting for like a really long time, probably, because the power is outside of you. Like, you're constantly waiting for something that you perceive has got a greater power than you, that has power over you, that can like force your hand, if you like, in your life of what you're meant to do. And it's not to say that you can't, I'm not really saying that I know everything about all this topic, but just how it's shown up for me, I guess. It's just like, it's not to say that you can't have a voice that moves through you, and you might identify that as God. But it's when you see that as separate to you, as like, that's where the problem comes in, because it still feels like there's a greater energy or consciousness than you, that can tell you what to do, and you have to kind of follow it. Otherwise, something is going to happen if you don't. Like, there's usually a story that kind of gets attached to religion a bit around that I've found anyway. So
I think that whole fear of God definitely is something that's been instilled by many men, probably men.
I would say definitely, like, there's definitely an agenda. There was definitely an agenda when you dig into the Catholic Church in particular. I only know that history because of how we were raised, but I'm sure with every religion, but there was a massive agenda behind taking the power away, especially suppressing the feminine. That's why there was only male priests, and females were allowed to do certain things, and why you had to give all your money to the church and everyone else was poor, and it was like massive agenda.
They burnt all the books, and there's just been throughout history like such a condemning of the free spirit and people just being themselves.
But then when you look at the Bible itself, say for example, or you know, in Jewish you have the Torah and all different things. Like there's so much truth and wisdom in those actual writings, and it's actually completely pointing to the truth. It's right there in plain sight, like in front of us. It's almost like one of those pointers that we're put in front of us, like we're saying these signs, but we've kind of put the power so completely outside of us that we still think it's got to be this entity that's going to come out of the sky and save us from our situation or something like that. We need saving. Yeah, it's kind of, but it's just like, well, the truth is actually there. Like the whole time it's pointing to saying you are the power, you are it. Like it's you come home to that. Like that's what the Bible is completely pointing to, that at the end of the day. But we've I guess told lies, and we get, you know, the languaging makes it hard, as we said before, like the languaging
totally
kind of
construed over
that separation.
Yeah, and that whole that fear of God. And it's like, if God represents unconditional love, how on earth could that be something to be feared? Like, it's the ultimate in unconditional love. Like, why would you fear that? Like, I just don't even get that. I remember saying to Mum one time, because she'd sort of say, "Oh, you should come to church. You know, it's Christmas time," sort of thing. Like, I'd never go any other time. "Oh, you should go," like, blah, blah, blah. I was just not feeling it. Like, just going, "You don't go to church anymore. You weren't raised like that, blah, blah, blah. You should go to church." And I said, "Well, think about it." I said, do you think that God is everywhere? And she went, "Oh, yes, of course." Like, yeah. I said, "Well, why do I need to go to a church to talk to him? Like, I could talk to him anywhere." Like him. You know, I can have a conversation anywhere. I can do it right now. Like, in fact, I do it all the time. So why do I have to go to a church to do it? She went, oh yeah, she never asked me again after that. I was like, I really stumped her. She's like, okay. Like, never really thought about that.
It is so true when you start pushing back sometimes on, you know, the constructs that people have around God in general, I suppose, just as an overarching concept, because it is such a pervasive kind of concept through, you know, it doesn't matter what the label that you call it. It doesn't matter if it's called God or Allah or, you know, I'm not sure what all the other religions do call it, to be honest, but it's kind of like, it doesn't really matter what the label is at the end of the day. It's kind of, it's all the same energy, like, and it's more whether we see ourselves as separate or that is us. Like it's there as a sign to kind of show us as the power that we actually have. Like it's and the only way we can, like, truly, I think, embody the infinite part of ourselves is to know yourself as that energy. You are the energy that moves everything in the world. Like you've created everything outside of you, which is really hard concept to get your head around as a little finite human, and totally get that too, struggle with that at times as well. But the more that you kind of keep telling yourself the truth about the situation, the more you kind of feel into that, and you just see everything around you as the one energy, like, and it's just interactions with you as that person, but showing up as somebody else, like, in your life. And yes, okay, you get some guidance. It looks like you're getting some guidance from outside, but it's essentially you talking to you, you know, the infinite part of you talking to yourself to show up in the storyline at that point in time, to give you that piece of information which lets you make that decision. You know, that's all it is at the end of the day. It's not outside of you, and it's not that person knows more than you, or you need to follow that person, or if it's a teacher, then they're better than you and they're more enlightened than you. Yeah, whatever story you have running around that, it's just like it's not the truth at the end of the day. It's the ego story we've built around it. So
everyone's got access to all whatever some teachers got, you know, that they specialize in and talking about type things, completely available to you at any moment. You just ask for it.
Yes.
It's like, I'd like to download that as well, or I'd like to be understanding that more myself, you know, like whatever it is, like it actually is available. Every piece of information is available at all times to anyone.
Yes.
Just ask for it.
Yes.
But yeah, I think the religion thing just makes me laugh a little bit, because it's like religions cause more wars and more deaths than probably anything on the planet. And yet we're all talking about the same thing. So it's sort of like, does that work?
About peace and unconditional love, and it's just funny.
Yeah, it's all pointing to the exact same thing. It's like, just it's really weird. Like, it's just humans being human and sort of really not being smart.
It's almost like that. If you looked at that from a bigger perspective, actually, what you just said, it's kind of like almost, that's actually like a pointer right there to the truth. It's just like, well, if you're coming at religion from the finite self, like the ego body and the story attached to it, then it's going to look divisive and polarizing. There's no two ways about it, because you ultimately are putting your power outside of you, that something up there in the sky is controlling your life and you don't have any say in it, and you have to do these things, and those people over there are bad because they believe in a different type of God. And it's just like, it can't be any other way in the story when you attach it like that. But if you're seeing yourself as that one energy coming through, that you are God, it is coming through you in this form, then and it is that true message of peace and unconditional love and everything that the Bible, the holy text points to. It's all pointers to the truth. It's like it's kind of like, well, I don't know. To me, it seems really obvious when you look at it from the bigger picture. It's just it's kind of there in plain sight, but we get so caught in the story of it all. Yeah. So, and it will be triggering. Perhaps this conversation might be triggering to some people, which totally fine. Like, be open to being triggered sometimes by things that get said, and actually just ask yourself the questions. Like, it's kind of like, why do I believe that? Like, is that actually true? Like,
is that true for me?
Yeah. Like, and even just, I mean, we've done that with different teachers, I guess I've had over the years too. It's like you get what you need to get. Like, we've created that in the storyline to get that that teacher shows up when, as I say, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. And it's so true. It's like when you've got an asking coming from within you, a true feeling to know yourself at a deeper level, the teacher will show up. That's a perfect match for where you're at right then. And then somehow you just outgrow that teacher. But some people get very like attached to their teachers and become like real followers. And then there's like these real cultish kind of things that kind of develop because of that too. And sometimes the teacher gets very attached to the ego part of being a teacher and being in that, having that power. And not to say every teacher by any means is definitely not doing that, but there is a lot of that goes on, like, and you see behind the scenes, and you kind of like try doing a business deal with a teacher that kind of is supposedly spirit. It's kind of, you kind of get to see what actually what they actually stand for,
really going on.
So it's kind of it's just like question everything, I guess, is the thing at the end of the day. It's just like, is anything true? Like, you have to really sort of I don't know, that's the only thing I can say is like, question everything, don't take anything for face value.
Feel into it, the truth for you sort of thing. Like, yes, we get raised as different things, and beliefs from our parents and school, and like so many different things influences, but then you do reach a point of being able to question it and go, does this feel true for me now? It may have been true back then, but is it still true for me right now? And follow what feels true for you. Like, it's not saying that this is true for anyone either. Like, it's just us having a conversation about what feels true for us. If you resonate with it, great. If you don't, then that's great too. Like, that's not for you. So it doesn't matter. So I guess in summary today, what did we talk about? I don't know. I was so present, I don't remember what we spoke about.
We were having a continuation of the conversation about, are you the one? Are you the one energy that runs through everything? And then how that can sometimes show up as separation, like this, the ego
guides and
separate to our actual ultimate sort of connection to the infinite. We're always the infinite. So then how does that show up in like guides and angels and all these other forms of guidance that we have around us, which are absolutely true in the moment when you see them as an aspect of yourself and not separate. Something that has power outside of you. Giving you
power. Putting your power outside of yourself. Then it doesn't matter where you get your information from and your guidance and help along the way, support them, and it's going to be there.
One form is not better than the other. It's
whatever works for you in that moment, and it will change from moment to moment. You might have guides in this moment, and the next moment it doesn't feel true for you to have that. So just not being attached to the form that they come in. And not putting power into it. It can only ever be a reflection of your consciousness and where you're at. All right.
That's it.
Do you want to see our view before I leave? We moved places today. We're now in Penang Island. It's going to go a bit crazy.
Hey, it's sort of picking up.
It's pretty bright out there. There. Don't move. Oh, God, don't move. There. No. That's not there. It's really nice. Oh, there you can see a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's an awesome view.
Yeah.
Really fun. Very cool. All right. Well, we'll
joining us again, and let us
know
in the comments if anything came up for you out of the conversation. It could have potentially been triggering.
Could be triggering. Yeah, definitely. Let us know in the comments.
Yes.
What came up for you? What was the most important parts of today?
Yes.
And if you've got any questions, we can definitely address those in our live. So
yes,
let us know.
All right.
All righty. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Bye.
Stay in for that.